Hope everyone's doing well today. And we do thank you for joining us. We are very excited to share how PRSONAS and PatientWorks reimagine patient engagement through the power of AI avatars. Over the next few minutes, we'll walk you through those challenges that healthcare systems face, how our solution works, and the real. That's why we're here. As we go through the presentation, please feel free to drop any questions. And we'll do our very best at the end. We have a section carved out for that time. Get answered live. Don't worry. You can always reach out to us directly to continue that conversation. And dive in. And first, I'd like for you to meet our presenters. First up, he will be the first to speak today. He's the CEO of PatientWorks Corporation. He brings over 3 decades of leadership and healthcare tech solutions. Become a trusted partner for kiosk check-in, mobile red forms management, operations, and improved patient experiences. And then joining him, we've got 𝗥𝗂𝗁𝗏 and the visionary technologist leading the development in AI-powered digital avatars that transform human engagement in healthcare. He's the driving force behind the patented trust and approachability to self-service solutions. Their insight shows all how this technology is making real impact. Now that you've met the presenters, we'll go ahead and get things off. I'm going to hand it over to Chuck, who's going to walk you through the first part of the presentation, starting with the challenge. When it comes to patient engagement, and approaches are definitely falling short. So, Chuck, you can take it away.
Thank you much, Julia. Appreciate y'all joining us today. We'll just talk briefly here, and I know everybody's excited for the demo as well as myself. We want to start off, though, and just talk about what we're seeing as some of the primary challenges in patient engagement. We've built wonderful enterprise scalable solutions, and one of the largest problems we see is getting the adoption and realizing the scalability of all the great technologies in AI we have coming out. AI promises to break down language barriers, offer multilingual support that is so difficult to support in a live patient environment. Like all organizations, there's constant staffing challenges that we all have. The desire to have 24/7 covered support coverage at our healthcare facilities. We all know illnesses don't take a breather, so we have to keep them staffed. There's also the inconsistent patient experiences, staffs under high stress environments constantly, and how do we create a consistent experience that helps address all the patient needs 24/7 across multiple facilities and even multiple countries. Also, that difficulty in capturing accurate data. Sounds like an easy problem, but to have a consistency there as well, and to have the same experience propagate throughout your organization, and to be able to offer that same experience to every single patient down to the individual is a challenge everyone faces, and the promise of workflow automation and AI helps address that. And then the bottom line I actually started off speaking about, and that's really improve adoption. We have all these great, wonderful workflow tools, all these analytical tools, all these health diagnostics tools, staff support tools, but they don't do anybody any good if people aren't using them. So how do you increase that adoption and scalability of these technology solutions? And that's a key point we'll be speaking about at length today. With that, I think we'll hand it over to Mr. Larry to speak on the next slide.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. I see some familiar names, and I'm glad you're able to join us. I also see some new people who may not be totally familiar with what PatientWorks is or does. So I'd like to just give you a brief overview, and then we can talk a little bit about why the partnership with the AI avatar to help improve engagement. So PatientWorks basically is a digital front door, and you can start from self-scheduling of appointments to appointment reminders to mobile check-in to self-service kiosk or tablets in there when they come in, to queue navigation, so e-forms. We got a lot of functionality basically to address those problems that Chuck talked about, particularly staff shortages. So the core piece that we're going to talk about today, and you'll see what PRSONAS can add for our solution, is we'll go through mobile check-in, self-service check-in, and tablet check-in kind of functionality. But basically, you can do your complete registration processes either on a mobile device at home or on their PC, or when they come in, they can do it on a full enclosure type self-service kiosk that has scanning of driver's licenses, insurance cards, and those type of things, signing of electronic forms, or you can do it on an iPad, a tablet. iPad or a tablet. So those are the kind of features that we have. We have some customers who are very concierge oriented, who are using an iPad tablet along with a staff member to assist the patient to go through a full service check-in, or we have people who are using this kiosk and letting the patients do it all themselves. So as you go through this, we collect copays and we'll do electronic forms, so you can do all the forms you need. But the important part here is that we also have to integrate to do real-time EMR integrations in order to have all the patient data and to post that information back into the EMR. So that's the picture here. Now, we try to do this as simple and easy as possible so that the patients can use it. So when you come into a kiosk, the screens are simple, but there's still going to be some concerns. So when we go in and talk to people who are interested in implementing this solution, one of the concerns they have is, well, my patient population is older, they're not tech savvy, what do I do? We make the screen simple and easy, and a lot of people can do it. There's still going to be a percentage of people who have problems with it. And so along that line, we've found PRSONAS, and we have a partnership here, and you'll see how their avatar can help those people who might struggle through a check-in and a kiosk. And so it's a new way of doing it. We'd love to have your feedback on it as you see it and go through it. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Chuck to let him talk more about the AI avatar.
Thanks, Larry. No, we definitely appreciate the partnership here. And as Larry mentioned, they've created these wonderful workflow efficiency tools. How do you make that in healthcare, as we get to more and more scalable solutions and more automation within the healthcare world? We don't want to lose that human connection. So creating a trusted experience that has an empathetic response and a consistent response across brands and across your facilities is really why this partnership makes so much sense. So if you look at what we're really pulling off here as the intelligence greeting and guidance goes, as you've seen, Larry's just spoke a little bit about the workflow, and we'll show a live demo here in a second, but this becomes that patient advocate. What would you do if you had enough staff members to give a one-to-one patient advocacy to the patient itself? How do you give that personalized guided experience through all these technological innovations? So you'll see here during this demo how the unit will greet you, how to guide you and assist that patient as it goes through their check-in process and even post-check-in process. We'll get to that in a minute. How to do that in a conversational fashion. How to, once you get checked in, how do you help patients get to where they want to go? There's a module you can add onto this for dynamic wayfinding that will actually allow patients to ask questions as simple as, where can I get a cup of coffee, to how do I make it to my next appointment, and then take those on a mobile device, and I'll show you that as well when we get to the demo. And that is the add-on option. Accessibility, 24/7, fully staffed, any language, including sign language. We say American Sign Language here. We've also deployed them in the UK with British Sign Language. But how do you break down those barriers for the language barriers you have with your patient? How does every member, every demographic of your hospital become and feel like they're well represented and well received, and a consistent experience regardless of your background or language, whether it's even a spoken language or a sign language? And then the integration component, all the wonderful benefits of the AI intelligence you get with your integrations with your EMR systems and healthcare systems, EHR systems. You get all that great data and analytics, and how do you do that without losing that human touch? And that's where this partnership makes a whole lot of sense. So what I'm going to do here real quick is I'm going to put my microphone on lower volume here. I'm going to switch over to a different screen. I'm going to show, think of it as a quick and dirty 3 to 5 minute patient experience. You're going to see me on the camera. You will see the kiosk screen on another screen. I'll pop up here in a second, and it will show you the conversational banter between me as the patient and the AI avatar as the check-in assistant. Once we're done with that, I'll open the floor back up and we'll continue from there. So let me reach over here and start this one up.
Welcome to the PatientWorks Medical Center. My name is Rita. I'm here to assist you in the check-in process. To begin, please say or select your method of identification.
I want to scan my driver's license.
Please scan the barcode on your ID. Thank you for scanning your ID. Is the information correct?
Yes, it is.
Are these the last 4 digits of your social security number? If not, please correct on the keypad below.
Yes, they are.
What appointment are you checking in for today?
The foot and ankle surgery.
Have you traveled to any of these locations in the last 14 days?
No, I have not.
Have you had contact with anyone with confirmed COVID-19 in the last 14 days?
No, I have not.
Lastly, have you had any of these symptoms in the last 14 days?
No.
We're almost done. Just one more thing, please look into the camera and I'll take your photo. Is this picture acceptable?
Yes, it is.
That was a quick sense of how I interact with patients. At PRSONAS and PatientWorks, we understand that no 2 healthcare facilities are alike. That's why our solution is fully customizable, designed to align with your specific intake workflows and patient engagement goals. Thanks for listening. If you have any additional questions, ask my friends, Larry and Chuck.
Thanks, Rita.
No problem. That is what I am here for.
Can you actually tell us a little more about wayfinding?
We can further assist your patient by providing them with optional wayfinding directions to your facility. Take a look at the video below for an overview of that capability.
You have a big hospital and people who need to find things in it. You need 𝗂𝗴𝗶𝗵𝗄.
Hello, welcome to Stratford Hospital.
A wayfinding solution with personality. With the power of 𝗂𝗴𝗶𝗵𝗄, your visitors can find anything.
A cup of coffee?
La farmacia?
𝗘𝗂𝗵𝗄𝗵𝗵.
𝗂𝗴𝗃 means less staff time wasted. A safe, touchless experience, all without losing the personal touch. And getting here faster. 𝗂𝗴𝗃 is experiential wayfinding with personality.
Great. So just to wrap that up, what you just saw was obviously a short demo. I know I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's time. We didn't get into a lot of the back and forth, but I showed you how, in this particular case, Rita would help guide that patient through and ask them for information. If along that way there were other questions, every hospital, every facility has their own check-in processes, requirements, questions, how much is anything from how much is parking to how do I get my blue badge registration if you have a different registration process. So this was just a simple concept of how to engage with a automation tool set like the PatientWorks check-in process, but have it assisted with that patient advocate along the way. So I think we're past the demo now. So I think the next slide was going to talk about trust. One thing we do very much believe in is a tough thing for the healthcare industry as a whole to support, is that patient trust, that patient empathy, and to create that human connection we talk about so much. It seems like an intangible, but it definitely contributes to that digital patient journey as a patient goes through their own healthcare journey, often in a very high-stressed environment, often when they're at their worst health-wise, or need that just a little extra help that will help foster their trust, empathy, and access to the healthcare systems they deserve. So that trust component, these avatars look more animated than a lot of people think. That's based on about 4 decades of my simulation training and even gaming experience. How do you create an avatar that is not judgmental? How do you create a personality that doesn't have a stigma attached to it? So some of the other approaches are super hyper-realistic humans. We've intentionally created our avatars to create a calming effect, to create an empathetic, approachable effect, to make sure that they can fully express the empathy. Their facial, if you notice their facial expressions, their gestures, they reflect cultural sensitivity. We have these deployed in Europe. We're getting ready to launch some in Japan. And how do you create cultural sensitivity for the target demographic you're addressing in your healthcare facility? And then, of course, that approachability is, how do you make this a comforting process for the patient versus struggling with trying to either get a live receptionist or a live healthcare assistant to help, or bombarding them with over complex technologies. This is that gap to help them engage more completely. So I think that kind of wraps that slide up. I'm seeing questions come through in the chat. Is that something, Julia, that we're going to be addressing at the end, or do you want me to address questions as they come up? Do you want us to address them as we go along?
I think we can wait until the Q&A section.
Okay.
And we are on the why use an avatar slide. Did you complete that, Chuck, and you want to toss it over to Larry for the next one?
I talked about the trust, the empathy, and the approachability pieces. There are kind of at length, and I think that's what prompted some of those questions.
All right, so let me just quickly here summarize some of the real results we see from this type of an approach. With the PatientWorks solution, we solve the staff shortage problems, we improve patient satisfaction, and it's got a really good return on investment. If you figure a staff member takes 8 to 10 minutes to check in a patient, by doing it through mobile or doing it through kiosks or tablets, you're basically saving that staff time. So by combining the avatar to help them out, you're basically improving the overall efficiency, and there's a return from collecting more co-payments, there's a return from reducing your no-shows, there's a return from eliminating paper scanning, and basically staff time freeing up. And that's a big issue for a lot of healthcare providers, is the staff issues. So we're here to help you on that. We're here to address those, and the avatar supplements what we do. The revenue capture can be measured, and so I guess if anybody wants an analysis or wants us to talk about the return on investment with them based upon the number of visits they have or whatever, we're more than happy to help you out and show you some numbers on what's been accomplished at different places. So Chuck, do you want to talk about the last two items here, kind of thing?
Sure. When you look at the, you talk about the improved patient satisfaction scores here, or are you talking about the next slide?
Both. The improved satisfaction and heightened accessibility.
Yeah, it really boils down to being able to take advantage of some of these scalable enterprise solutions that are being rolled out. It's no secret that the word AI pops up in almost every conversation nowadays, and you've got all these great, wonderful operational efficiency tools. But how do you do that without losing the human touch? How do you do that and still make your patients feel like they're well represented? You're addressing them in their native languages. You're approaching them with avatars that are very non-judgmental. You're approaching them with culturally sensitive personalities that mimic the expectation from their backgrounds. And that overall has just led to great, wonderful patient satisfaction and patients not feeling like they're getting just dumped into a digital system. So that's where the patient satisfaction scores come in. Heightened accessibility, it almost seems too obvious, but as we live in a more and more global world and global community, our healthcare systems and even non-healthcare systems, quite honestly, are being asked to address a larger, more diverse population of patients. And by providing a structure where the core knowledge base is built in a multilingual fashion and can be programmed to speak, understand, and deliver in literally 150 plus languages, and that changes almost weekly. And those unsigned languages, we have 2 members of the deaf community on staff, and ASL in British Sign Language, American Sign Language. I think very few speaking people understand that there are about as many dialects, actually more dialects in sign language than there are even in spoken language. So how do you create that heightened accessibility to anybody in your patient demographic without having to take on the impossible task of staffing 25 different interpreters or creating all your collateral and all your patient support materials and all your patient processes and workflows in 150 different languages? You can put this abstraction layer, we call it abstraction layer, this human connection layer on top, and then isolate that communication portion from the back-end workflows. And that just overall improves scalability of everybody's system.
Hey Chuck, one question for you. We're getting more and more on accessibility for visually impaired people. We're doing these storm devices and stuff, but what your solution could do is just talk to that person. We wouldn't need to do some of that other stuff. And the other thing I'd like you to talk just briefly about is how you train your avatar. What we do in PatientWorks is a structured set of workflows and screens and everything else, but there are times that a patient will ask a question out of context compared to that screen. How do you train the avatar to understand those extraneous questions and deal with them?
That's a great question, and we could probably speak all afternoon on that. But in summary, just like in any facility, and this is actually very relevant because we have deployed a few systems out with the National Health System in Europe. And even though they're English speakers and we're English speakers, there are cultural differences. Their elevators are called lifts. They have different terminology for the same aspects we have here. So what we do in that case is we work with the patient experience team. There's a couple of things here when you look about privacy and cultural accuracy. So we'll work with the patient experience teams of the facilities, and we'll even train Daphne to listen to the specifics. For instance, there's a big donor at the Princess Alexandra Hospital. The last name was Harvick, H-A-R-V-I-C, but they referenced that as a facility location. How do I get to the Harvick ward? Where's the Harvick ward? Versus saying I'm going to get my blood work or lab work. That's another thing. They don't call it blood work over there. But in any sense, the point is that we're training the avatars with the patient experience team so that they have an understanding on what the patients at these facilities would address. Your second question, or it's really the same question, but second question is how do you make sure that those digital employees, as we call them, stay within what we call on the rails, meaning you don't just want to throw it into a chat GPT or let it talk to Alexa or Siri because you ask it, general purpose questions, you get general purpose answers. And most of them, as we all know, suffer from what in the AI world are called hallucinations. It's basically a crowdsourced knowledge base. So when we work with the patient experience teams, we know what their expectation is. We can even say, I want you to answer these questions word for word, how the patient experience team wants it to say, or can find within the realms of the knowledge base that they find from the Princess Alexandra NHS Trust website. So we can build this knowledge base based on the vetted information that you want them to be trained on. Think of her as our them, because we do have male, female, and non-binary characters. Think of the digital employees we have here as employees that would go through your employee training program, but with a photographic memory and never go off script. And what knowledge you teach them is what they'll deliver as well. The third point I'm going to bring in, and I know it's a little long-winded, but in my mind, it's probably the #1 underrated benefit you get from a conversational interface, is as you go through the workflow, they get checked in and you say, hey, I can help you get where you want to go. Somebody might come up and say, oh, I think I forgot to pay my parking meter, fill the parking meter. Do I need to pay for parking now or can I do it later? So what the point of that question is, even if your patient experience team or you don't think about it, by asking your patients in a conversational, what can I help you with? Not, do you want option A, B, or C? You gain some unheard of insights into really what is on your patient's brain. What are they thinking of right now? What do they truly need help in? So then we're able to take the photographic memory of our avatars and go back to your patient experience team or the hospital administrators and say, you know what? You might not have thought of this and this thing's working wonderful, but here are 10 things your patients were asking for last month that you didn't even know they wanted to know. So those are the 3 ways that we train them up front, we train them on vetted knowledge, and then we provide them to allow us to gather patient insights in a conversational manner. And we work all that back through the patient experience and administration team.
I think that's pretty powerful. Thanks.
It really is. It really is. It's astronomically advanced, or I'd say it's advancing at astronomical speeds. So, you know, if we came back to this webinar in 60 days, we would probably have another 5 things we could talk about. But definitely has some great. I'm excited and has some great promise and to help serve patient populations better. Do you want to jump into that last slide, Julie, or do you want to?
Yeah, I think we're up on key takeaways, and I'll speak about the PatientWorks thing. I
Sure.
think that in general, if you have staff shortages, if you think you can improve your patient satisfaction, if you think you've got issues anywhere along in your registration processes, we can help you. And I think the important part here is you've kind of seen what we can do, and you've seen how the AI avatar can help out with that. So we have a lot of capabilities that we're the platform on which the avatar will run. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Chuck to kind of summarize what the PRSONAS. You kind of said a lot already, but anything you want to summarize here? Key takeaway?
Yeah, it really is just, telling you what we've already told you, but at the end of the day, you've got the scalability of a platform like PatientWorks to help support patients at scale. But we just need to, as a healthcare organization, we need to do a better job, I think, of doing that without losing the human side of the equation. So PRSONAS is that bridge gap. So the beauty here and the belief of this partnership and relationship is that if you have the scalability and operational effectiveness of an enterprise platform such as PatientWorks, and you do that with a digital personality to help bring that keep that human component as we scale our healthcare system, it's really the integration of those two that really bring the promise of scaled healthcare without losing the human component.
Great. We're excited. We're looking forward to this.
Wonderful.
Well, from here, we will go into some Q&A. And with that, I'm going to toss it over to our team member, Melissa, to present some of the questions. And if anybody has anything, please feel free to speak up. No question is crazy. No question is, we're ready to answer anything. So I'll leave it up to you, Melissa.
Hello. Yeah, go ahead and put any questions you have in the chat. One that we got via email was, what does the integration look like for the solution? And does staff have to be trained on how to use the AI avatar, how to fix the AI avatar? Are we asking them to do more with their time?
That's a great question. Since it was related to avatar, I'm assuming they're speaking to how to integrate the avatar piece into the PatientWorks system or another enterprise solution. Short answer is, think of the PRSONAS platform as kind of similar to and I loosely use the word chatbot, but think of it as a chatbot integration. We have published SDKs, APIs, it's all wrapped in, all the heavy lift is there. So the concept of these animated characters, all the gestures are generative, all the facial expressions are generative. It's a patented process where we literally look at what you ask the avatar to speak, and she lip syncs, she synthesizes her own voice, she talks in real time, she moves her head, she gestures. If I say, I've got 2 things I want to talk to you about, she might hold up 2 things. Or if she goes, what can I help you with? She might pat her chest and say, I'm here to help you. So all that is really abstracted from you. So the integrations, for instance, and I'm just going to show that this is a very simple integration that we did for this demo and with PatientWorks, but this integration was done in a matter of days. It really is a low lift process. There's some complexities depending on the solution that go into the mix. But at the core, it's just a third-party piece of API integration software that sits on top of your application, or in this case, PatientWorks application, and acts as a user experience layer. I don't know if that gives enough granularity. Are there any follow-ups to that? But I'll leave it there and throw it back to you to see if I answered your question sufficiently.
Let me add one thing, Chuck. I think if you start out with a new project, what we typically do is we have to understand, capture all the knowledge of what the registration staff is doing, capture all that, putting into our workflows, what forms they need to do, what if it's for this service area, that service area, how you want to collect money, not collect money. The avatar is pretty much the same thing. You have to define what that avatar, you're sort of copying your registration staff into the avatar's knowledge. So there's a startup process of capturing all that knowledge, doing that. And your staff can, depending upon the IT capabilities of your staff, there's a role they play, but we also can do a lot of it with, depending on what your skill levels are, and we'll walk you through that. Does that help, Chuck, what I'm saying?
Oh, no, absolutely. And I didn't mean to sound like you don't have to go through requirements and figure out what the client is. So I apologize. I didn't make that more clear, but you're absolutely true. I think there was one component as you spoke there, Larry, that was part of that question, is do we have to train our staff? Short answer is yes. What would typically happen is when you put a avatar into the mix with their workflow, they've got to get familiarity with it. The avatar might, quite honestly, misinterpret a few things if it's not developed up front. Until you put it in front of the patient population, we really don't know what they're going to ask. So that's part of that beauty of learning the insights. But the point there is to let your staff know that this is going in place, and the units are developed so that if I ask Rita, in this case, a question and I don't know the answer, you really want your staff to still be able to address that client. It's almost like you don't throw someone behind one of these voice response systems and still don't have a call center to help back them up. So you would have her trained on as much information as your patient experience team believes your patients want. What knowledge do they want? What questions do they want to answer? What process do they need supported? But there's always going to be that component of learning. We call it a continuous improvement. So when we get questions from more patients and we increase her knowledge, she's going to be retrained. So we will need your involvement from your administration team or your patient experience team so that Daphne, what Daphne's ours, this one's Rita, while Rita is being trained, she'll learn more and more as she goes on, kind of like the machine learning, but we want her to be learning and giving information back to the patients that is vetted from your team. So there is that involvement. So over time, your team's involvement can become less and less and less.
Well, I'd like to break in for a minute because that your reference of Daphne brings up a good point. That the avatars you get to choose the name. So with every avatar we deploy, you can name that avatar male, female, whether it's a bear, or a juvenile character, you get to name them. So for instance, at Princess Alexandra Hospital, we have Alex that works there. So that's kind of a fun fact about our avatars.
Yeah.
I thought I'd throw that in.
I think Alex is in the office with me.
Yeah, but we did get a question from Jenny. I'm trying to understand your question, Jenny, but I think I get the gist of it, which is if someone is embarrassed to speak to the avatar about their symptom or or they just don't have the capability of speaking, I think that can be addressed because we're not just a spoken language tool. So I'll let you take that one, Chuck.
Sure. Yeah, great question, and one we probably should have addressed earlier. Just trying to keep things moving. We're voice first, not voice only. We believe highly in touchscreens. Obviously, there's a lot of touchscreen component and keyboard component to any of these workflow automations. The conversational aspect is meant just to create more of what we like to call a frictionless conversation. When you get information that's sensitive, you can either enter it directly on the screen, or some people, some clients have even gone to the trouble of, and I'll hold up my phone here, this is a map. So once they say, how do I get to my lab, or how do I get to the pharmacy, or if they want to ask personal information like, how do I, I want to put in my birth date, or I'll load in my last 4 digits of my social security or payment information. Some clients have even used QR codes and passed the experience off to their mobile phone. So bottom line is the data acquisition, some of that sensitive information can be spoken, can be put on a touchscreen, or even in many cases can be pushed over to a personal device that would keep it totally isolated to them as well. Now, Larry, did you want to chime in with any information on, EMR, EHR, HIPAA compliant integration?
Well, I think the question was that if some of the screens have questions on them, like, have you experienced this kind of symptom or whatever, can Daphne read that instead, because they may be illiterate and cannot read? And I think she could, right? I mean, is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
You can respond conversationally as well. It's not just one-way conversation.
Right.
Our next question is from Lorelei, who asks, can a patient choose their preferred avatar from the kiosk? For example, a female or a male avatar?
Yes. Short answer, yes. Typically, there's 2 ways we integrate. The first way is a lot of companies think of it as almost, and I hate to think of it as in commercial terms, but call it a brand ambassador. This character that you saw earlier, Rita, is really meant to be an ambassador. Julia mentioned Alex. Alex is a avatar that we built for Princess Alexandria Hospital. You would tell us what is the personality, what is the ambassadorship you want to present to your clients. That's the first way we deliver. And right now, I think we have roughly, and Julia, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's roughly 16 avatars. Each avatar, you can do hair color, eye color, what clothing you want them to wear, skin tone. There's multiple body shapes. So you basically can customize your avatar to create whatever brand you want to create. Second piece of the puzzle to that question is, can the patient select their avatar? Short answer is yes. The slightly longer response to that is that requires a certain level of customization. Our characters, you don't want to sit there and turn it into a Nintendo Wii game where people are picking their eye colors and building their own little Facebook avatars just to converse with it. We've used these avatars successfully in multiple clinical trials. So when we know what target demographic we're going to be presenting, let's just say we have a population that we know there's a large population of Hispanics, Caucasian, and Black patients, let's say, then you could say, here are the 3 or 4 character options, typically 2 or 3. We don't like to go over 3. Here are the two or 3 characters that we believe are going to resonate and be approachable to our demographic. Children's hospitals, we have Amy and Oliver, who are young teenage female and males, and Julie already mentioned Red. Red's our little red panda. When you get more in the pediatric scene. So you really create a couple of selections based on the demographic that you feel is going to be most represented in your patient population.
Awesome. Another question would be, are there any real world examples of AI avatars specifically helping patients through their patient journey?
There's a ton. Some of them aren't done by us, quite honestly. Patient journey is a very broad, in my mind, and I apologize if I'm a little naive on the specific journey you're referring to. I'm a late stage colon cancer survivor myself, and I go down to MD Anderson, and I got overwhelmed going through that healthcare system. And during one of the clinical trials I was at, they were using an avatar, quite honestly, it wasn't ours, to help me go through this clinical trial. I don't think it was done as well and as flexible as ours. Our systems, real world examples, are probably like, let's pick on more of a juvenile, because I love the pediatric use case. We worked with the Disney Imagineering team and with Advent Health. Advent Health funded it. And for those of you who might be Central Floridians or at least visited Disney World, Celebration Health is the hospital that serves the Disney World. We used a bear, the animated bear, to greet kids who were going to have MRIs or CT scans. We would get them talking to the bear. The bear, as he was playing a few games with him, you would hear subtle, the grinding sounds of the MRIs in the back, with the intent of the bear guiding this kid, the patient, into becoming a little more acclimated and a little more comfortable with the process. And we were able to get sedation rates down by almost 14% by letting the kids interact and engage with an avatar prior to their procedure. Princess Alexandria is another good one we mentioned earlier. That's a character that greets patients at the PHA facility. It's a 19-building, huge campus, and people constantly get lost on that campus. That one probably helps. So I think, Julie, you might have the numbers. It's somewhere around 60 something a day, or how many patients is it helping find lost patients, find their locations?
Yeah, their average is about that per day. And more than half of that is when the reception area or the volunteer desk is unmanned, which is an ideal point to bring across, because they have a volunteer desk right next to the avatar, which is not ideal, but that's where they wanted it. However, when that desk is unmanned, that's when our avatar shines.
Yes. Very, very good point. I forgot about that. I'm glad you chimed in on that. Another potential use case, and I know I'm speaking a lot, so I'll pipe down after this one, that we're particularly proud of is our work with RTI. We've done 6 or 7 clinical trials where we're helping patients through the process of being recruited, going through the consent process, and helping people stay engaged and staying in the clinical trial. The one that's currently going on that we're proud of is the 𝗬𝗏 trial. It's a trial designed to study the outcomes of babies that are born to mothers who have an opioid addiction. And so you can go, and it's no stretch of the imagination to know if there's a 15-year-old Hispanic female on opioids, she doesn't want to talk to this 59-year-old gray-haired white male about her reasons for being addicted to opioids and what the impact is going to be there. And that's a big plus, is to create that trust we talked. How do you create an underserved community? How do you embellish the trust and create an empathetic avatar that will help reach out to them and get them involved in these clinical trials that are grotesquely misunderrepresented with these underrepresented communities and the language barriers and such. So that's another trial we're pretty proud of being involved in directly with as well. So lots of great, wonderful use cases. This one here is to help patients get checked in and to get them to their appointments on time.
Awesome. And we have time for maybe one or two more questions as we're heading towards the top of the hour here in a little bit. We want to make sure everyone gets off so they can get to any 3 p.m. meetings that they have. The next question we have is, can AI avatars learn the history of the patient, reminding patient about missing immunization, for example, so like the medical history?
Another brief short answer is yes. The longer term is that the knowledge that we talked about, if you remember when I alluded back about working with the patient experience team, what knowledge do you want to train this digital employee on? You got to think of these as digital employees that have an infinite memory almost. The average avatar can remember about 36,000 questions. When we integrate to learn the history of a patient, there's going to be a lot more regulatory and compliance issues involved. So it's going to be a larger lift. We're going to have to do EMR, EHR integrations, pull the patient data down, make sure it's satisfying HIPAA compliancy, and then it could go through that history of the patient. And then the big question is, from a risk mitigation standpoint, what information do you really want the avatar disseminating back to the patient? So it's less about the technological capabilities of the avatar and more about the risk mitigation and how you want the avatar to respond. So bottom line is, it's more about the data behind it and the knowledge behind it than the technical ability to deliver that information.
Well, let me add to that. Your
Sure.
EMR is your source of truth, and so that's the record of where you know what immunizations that particular patient might have. And you have some logic, business logic, that says, I want to notify this patient that they're due for their immunizations. PatientWorks captures information from the EMR and puts it into our own database. And it's just a mapping of that data by HL7 or FHIR APIs. This lets us know what that immunization history of that patient is. And your logic would trigger when we would either send out a text or an email, or when they come in, have the avatar say, hey, I noticed you still need to have this immunization. So we can handle all the data integration parts. I think we need to understand the logic of when you want to notice, and typically you want to maybe do it by text and email as well before they come in, so they know, or get them to come in, put it that way. So the part of that Chuck's talking about of the data integration, getting the source of truth, the history of that patient, we can do that. It's a matter then of knowing what you want on the front end for the avatar to say, hey, you're due for an immunization or not, or whatever. We can pull the pieces back on the back end. Make sense?
Yeah, that's a very valid point, because that would be something that would want to be addressed prior to them arriving at the avatar.
Right.
So yeah, there's just a lot of customization that can happen. I am going to step in and close this up for us, and I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. We hope that the session gave you a little better look at how our AI avatars and our partnership with PatientWorks could transform your patient engagement. We're trying to make healthcare more accessible, more empathetic, and more efficient without straining all the frontline employees and the staff members, because they've already got enough. If you don't get your question, or if you even come up with a question afterwards, please feel free to reach out. Do not hesitate. Either team is willing to answer, and we're always happy to continue the conversation. And also, as a reminder, you will be receiving a recording, a link to this recording, as well as the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation. And if that prompts any questions, again, just happy to reach out and give you any information that you need, or give you more information that you can share with other team members if that would be appropriate. So just want to thank you again, and we look forward to connecting soon. And take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Now that we